Dear colleagues, today we are organizing this unique webinar to mark a friendship between Croatia and Ukraine and to continue our professional collaboration. I am grateful to Professor Grazio and Professor Anic, who offered a chance to gather and discuss scholarly writing issues. All discussed points will be helpful for our Croatian researchers and clinical rheumatologists interested in contributing to rheumatology and other medical journals. Updates on reporting are necessary to successfully complete and achieve more. A few words about our contributors. Professor Anic is one of the influential leaders at ULAR who has done a remarkable job over past years. He is a renowned journal editor and head of the Croatian Rheumatology Society. Professor Grazio is a driving force behind Croatian rheumatology and science communication. He has arranged several unforgettable writing and editing seminars before the pandemic and helped numerous Croatian rheumatologists to succeed with publishing and academic promotion. And Dr. Gasparian is highly skilled specialist with interest in autoinflammatory disorders and comorbidities. He is based in the UK as a researcher and educator. He is a member of the World Association of Medical Editors and a good friend of Ukrainian rheumatologists. Welcome all to our webinar. Once again, thanks to all organizers for today's meeting. And it's a big pleasure to welcome our organizers, Professor Semyon Grazio and Professor Branimir Aic from introductory words. Please.
Thank you, Olena, very much. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to this meeting. There are two reasons for this meeting. One of these is very obvious. We are going to broaden our knowledge of scientific or scholarly writing and publishing also. And I think that most of our colleagues who are here with us will learn a lot of things, a lot of unnecessary things for good scientific writing. And unfortunately, the other occasion is to make sure and to show our respect and support to all you people in Ukraine, which are now suffering something which we suffered 30 years ago. And we completely understood what is happening there. We saw the same words, same pictures, same explanations for aggression, and we know everything what is going on. We really understand it. The only small difference is that Ukraine is a huge country, and when you see these pictures, you see the big space all around, and everything what was happening in Croatia was all in a small place, not so big distances and not so many people. That's the only difference. And 30 years later, and we never expected something like that what happened to us can happen ever in Europe, especially in Europe. It means in some kind of a good organized country. So that's the other unfortunate reason. But the fortunate reason is that we are going to broaden our knowledge. And I thank you and also Armen for giving us opportunity to learn something, and also to I thank Simon for doing all this organization prerequisites for doing this meeting. Shime, izvoli.
Thank you, dear Olena, Armen. We are very happy to see you again. You are our friends, our supporters, our collaborators, and especially you, Olena, because of the situation and the war in Ukraine. We dedicate this webinar to you and to all the Ukrainian colleagues and all the Ukrainian people in general. So you have our sympathy, our support in these difficult moments. And one way of showing that solidarity and honoring you, Olena, is that this webinar, which I'm convinced it will be useful to our colleagues, especially young researchers, and is led and coordinated by you as an expert in the field of publishing and communication, as well as you, Armen, as a highly profiled editor-in-chief of Rheumatology International, as one of the leading rheumatology journals, scientific journals in the field of rheumatology. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Olena, which is a host and the coordinator of this webinar.
Thank you, Professor Grazio. Thank you, Professor Anic. Thank you to all Croatian people for their support, Ukrainian people in this difficult time. Let's start our today's scientific program. And our first presentation is by Armen Kasparyan, who will be talking about systematic search strategy, ethical writing, and targeting indexed rheumatology journals. We encourage all our participants to make comments and ask questions. You can simply type them into the chat box on your Zoom panel, and I will bring them up, and we will have time after every presentation to discuss these questions, and also at the end of our webinar. Please,
Elena,
Dr. Kasparyan.
you can see my screen, everything is fine, yeah?
Yes, everything is fine, yes.
Okay, just remind me if there is any problem with connection or something like that. Okay, shall we start?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so it's a privilege to lecture today and to devote this webinar to our Ukrainian friends, rheumatologists and scholars who suffer a lot because of the war in Ukraine. We are going to discuss some important issues related to scholarly writing. We still need good quality articles and journals to successfully compete in the current in the situation when the number of publication outlets is multiplying, increasing, and we have to successfully publish and index quality items that meet ethical standards established by global scholarship, global community of journal editors, professionals, and indexers. So I've noticed that some of our today's participants wanted to learn more about search strategies, how to target good journals, and how to improve their practical skills for writing good quality articles. The most important thing for rheumatologists and rehabilitation specialists is to know about top quality journals indexed by prestigious or global indexing services like Scopus, which is the largest multidisciplinary bibliographic database, Web of Science, Medline, or PubMed Central Archive, and a number of specialist databases. So you can see that there are more, you all probably know that there are more than 50 indexed rheumatology journals. Some of them are quite old, others were launched in the era of open access, and some of journals publish electronic versions only. So today I am going to stress the importance of choosing target journals via searches through Scimago journal and country rank, which is linked to Scopus database, relies on Scopus data, and updates its ranking on each May. So in the coming 2 months, we'll have another ranking, updated ranking of rheumatology and all other journals. So at the moment, there are 58 rheumatology journals with Scopus indexing and with published journal metrics. All rheumatology specialists and some PMR or rehabilitation specialists should know about this list and should try their best to target these journals in the first place. And if they receive rejections, they may try other journals. So we know about big 5 rheumatology journals. The list is topped by Annals of Rheumatic Diseases, which is one of the oldest rheumatology journals currently published by BMJ Publishing Group. And there are also other traditional highly ranked journals like Arthritis and Rheumatology, ACR Journal, review journals like Nature Reviews Rheumatology, Arthritis Care and Research, the top open access journal, Gold Open Access Journal, and also some other journals. So of all rheumatology journals covered by Scopus and with Scopus-based metrics, we know that 24 journals are registered with Directory of Open Access Journals, and this directory is the most reputable directory of open access journals, so-called whitelist of ethical journals. And those who are obliged or who should publish open access articles, they should choose open access rheumatology journals from this list, 24 rheumatology journals. Of course, you know some traditional open access journals like Arthritis Research and Therapy, but you also know about relatively new open access journal, EULAR Open Access Journal, RMD Open, and some of these journals are very friendly to rheumatology researchers, residents, new fellows, particularly those who are interested in publishing case-based reviews and other studies based on their clinical data. But most of the time, most indexed rheumatology journals welcome cohort studies, online surveys, narrative and systematic reviews. So for all rheumatology fellows, searches through different bibliographic databases are of great importance. And today we are going to discuss these search strategies based on our knowledge, based on our experience of working with Scopus, Web of Science, Medline, DOAJ, etc., etc. So there are some global editorial associations concerned with ethical writing. Of course, you all know about International Committee of Medical Journal Editors. More experienced rheumatologists or general medical journals like Professor Branimir Anic and Professor Simeon Grazio. They are also familiar with the World Association of Medical Editors, Committee on Publication Ethics, and all researchers, all editors should know about Equator network reporting standards to target top rheumatology and other journals, because all medical journals are currently relying on Equator, they recommend their authors and reviewers to adhere to Equator network standards, reporting guidelines. You probably also know about DORA, Declaration on Research Assessment. It's a declaration by American specialists who published their statement on research assessment based on impact factors, based on citation metrics and other metrics in 2012. And over the past 10 years, numerous journals endorsed their statement, DORA statement, and currently consider not just journal impact factor, but also site score, other impact metrics, downloads, altmetric scores for choosing quality journals, targeting, and also contributing to these journals. Of main recommendations for all scholars, I would like to emphasize the importance of International Committee of Medical Journal Editors recommendations. These are traditional recommendations, last updated a few months ago in 2021. And there are also recommendations for Council of Science Editors. These recommendations are drafted by American, US-based, and just North American editors, mostly New England Journal of Medicine, other reputable general medical journals. All these recommendations tell us about ethical writing, how to avoid publishing in predatory journals, how to draft ethical research and review articles. So just few points on International Committee of Medical Journal Editors recommendations. They have strict criteria for authorship, 4 authorship criteria. All our participants should know that being an author is a privilege and also a responsibility. So if they wish to have their names associated with papers, they should also take responsibility for all aspects of the work. So 4th criterion of these authorship criteria is relatively new, publicized in 2013, so almost 9 years ago, but it's relatively new, and not all authors, scholars are familiar with this 4th criterion of authorship. Some of our participants also have ORCID IDs, Open Research and Contributor ID. Those new researchers, new residents who wish to have academic career, they need to register freely with ORCID platform and present all the academic achievements on ORCID ID. Few notes about predatory journals. Some of these journals are quite active currently, and they target naive new researchers, encourage them to publish with their poor quality substandard journals. So you should always discuss with your senior fellows, senior authors, co-authors, whether it's worth submitting your great work to a journal. So some startup journals, even without indexing services, even without Medline, Scopus, Web of Science indexing, are worth. These journals can be good targets. However, you should also pay attention whether these journals are associated with societies, professional societies. If a professional society endorses the journal, publishes journal, it's worth submitting and publishing with that journal. Other than that, you should pay attention to Medline, Scopus, Web of Science indexing to avoid being trapped by predatory journals. Statistics. Not all clinicians, not all rheumatologists are well familiar with statistical analysis, but what they should know, particularly those who publish case control studies, small research works, they need to pay attention to power of statistical analysis. 95% confidence intervals. Most of the time, novice researchers publish works and draw conclusions based on p-values. It's p-values, particularly for clinicians, do not have clinical meaning. P-values are just for statisticians. What clinical specialists value more is power of statistical analysis, 95% confidence intervals. Other statistical power values, and big numbers, large sample sizes. So with regard to references, we need to know which references are valid and which references can be included in our research papers. Most of the time, seasoned researchers and authors with numerous publications include in references articles from Lancet, BMJ journals, Nature journals, and they think that it's enough. No, they should also pay attention to diversity of sources. So all references in review articles, in original research papers, are usually retrieved via Scopus, PubMed, Web of Science, and other reputable databases. And I'm also trying to encourage you to work more with Scopus, which is multidisciplinary database, Web of Science, not just PubMed. PubMed is for medics with limited number of indexed journals, around 5,000, whereas Scopus has more than 25,000 journals from all disciplines. Web of Science, almost the same, and there is also new registry, relatively new registry for our clinicians, Directory of Open Access Journals, DOAJ, which is also a reputable source for searches of articles. International Committee encourages to use conflict of interest form, and our scholars who work with pharmaceutical agencies should always disclose their associations in a structured form using disclosure of interest form, which was updated last February 2021, a year ago. So it's easy to fill this form if you do not have any relationships with pharmaceutical industry and there are no any other non-financial conflicts. Please also fill out this form and submit to journals. It's mandatory for most journals, like published by big publishers. And few examples how journals declare their adherence to best standards presented by International Committee of Medical Journal Editors. I was consulting a startup journal from Central Asia, and you can see that this journal declared adherence to ethical standards. It also associated with Open Science in Ukraine, which was relatively powerful initiative in Eastern Europe, aimed to digitize, to increase visibility of Ukrainian journals. So some Central Asian journals also benefited, particularly this one, and I also encouraged my fellows in Central Asia also to work with this initiative, and they managed to register their journal with Directory of Open Access Journals a few months ago, and the journal is aiming to get indexed by Scopus, Web of Science, and probably archived by PubMed Central. Another successful startup journal, it's not startup, but a journal published by Hellenic Rheumatology Association, endorsed by Croatian Rheumatology Society years ago. This journal was also consulted by me and Dr. Olena Zimba. And the journal managed to get indexed by Embase, Scopus, registered with Directory of Open Access Journals, and archived by PubMed Central. You probably know that all medics are interested in searches via PubMed, so the journals archived with PubMed Central are automatically visible on a PubMed platform. So these are just examples of good journals who succeeded because of adherence to best standards. So I should recall my cooperation with Bosnian and Croatian fellows, editors, in 2016, we managed to draft and publish Sarajevo Declaration on Ethics of Publication Ethics, and some points of this declaration urged scholars in Mediterranean region, in Balkan countries, to register with ORCID ID and be more transparent with their academic activities when they review for journals, post their accomplishments on ORCID ID, etc., etc. So I also hope that today's participants will read Sarajevo Declaration and learn some points from this declaration. For our seasonal fellows, it's important to know that authorship criteria are still being revised, and some journals encourage also to adhere to credit taxonomy to disclose their authorship contributions in detail. And you can see that authorship is quite complicated. Authors may suggest good ideas, may search literature, may do other technical work, and any academic contribution deserves credit. So credit taxonomy is something new, and I hope that you will also face the requirement by some journals to disclose your authorship contributions in detail. Some journal editors also need to know about credit taxonomy. So about writing different article types, most researchers who wish to publish with top rheumatology journals may consider drafting narrative reviews. These are well accepted, welcome by journal editors, but there are also different types of review articles. Some qualitative systematic reviews also are welcome by journal editors because, again, this type of articles retrieved via different bibliographic databases. Equator suggested to stick to their requirements, particularly PRISMA standard for drafting systematic reviews. When you draft systematic reviews, you initially work with thousands of articles, then exclude irrelevant items, and at the end you end up with 20-30 articles required for processing, synthesis, and drawing tables. From my side, I suggested recommendations on writing narrative reviews and also emphasize the importance of searches via multidisciplinary and specialist databases, Scopus, PubMed, and also some specialist databases. For all researchers who wish to analyze articles, work with primary research articles, they need to know about PICO tool, patients, intervention, comparison or comparator, and outcomes. So any articles, original research paper processed for narrative review or systematic reviews, PICO is primarily used for systematic reviews. We need to know this PICO structure, and we should analyze all articles in line with this structure: PICO, patients, intervention, comparator, and outcome. Systematic reviews are registered with Prospero registry. It's a product of York University. So now about titles of reviews, particularly narrative reviews. All titles should include buzzwords, attractive words, professional keywords to make titles retrievable, searchable. Some narrative reviews may also include quotation, question mark, can be interrogative. Examples from good journals like Lancet, you see that the same review can be published, but with some new keywords like geographic keywords, and it's acceptable. These type of reviews are acceptable for good journals, but for most small journals where editors are interested in specific topics, it's better to be more specific, to choose specific new or innovative topic, and this way encourage readership to pay more attention to details. Reviews like rheumatoid arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis, etc., are more suitable for big rheumatology journals or general medical journals, and written by Nobel Prize winners or authors with decades-long experience in certain diseases. Novice researchers and new fellows should be more interested in more specific fields of rheumatology and produce reviews to contribute to their PhD studies and other research projects. Currently, there are also numerous reviews on COVID-19, also welcome by good journals. And you can see an example of search strategy by Lancet. They may publish articles based on just PubMed searches, but again, they emphasize the importance of presenting keywords, timelines, and specifics of search strategies. An altmetric altmetric is a project aggregating social media attention from numerous social media platforms, and you can see an example of this Lancet review on COVID-19, which was well promoted on Twitter with numerous citations and also readership on Mendeley networking and bookmarking platform. How we structure reviews? Our structure should include several subtitles. All sections of review articles should be informative about keywords, and these keywords are retrieved from MESH, Medical Subject Headings platform, MESH platform. All novice researchers should know about this keywords platform and should use to have more specific search strategies, whether for PubMed, for Scopus, Web of Science databases, or specialist databases. We also encourage to use some specialist databases. You can see names of these databases for rehabilitation specialists or PMR specialists. Physiotherapy database is important to work on systematic reviews. It's called PEDRO, Physiotherapy Evidence Database. It's something new for you. Those who write reviews and systematic reviews may also benefit from searches of DOAJ. DOAJ is a directory of open access journals with nearly 8,000 covered or registered journals. And our Dr. Olena Zimba is currently associate editor of this registry. So in terms of choosing evidence, we should be very careful. In rheumatology, there are some fields like Behçet's disease, where most evidence comes from case series or individual case reports. Only a couple of well-organized clinical trials or only a handful of large cohort studies. So we should be more flexible, and we should process evidence-based data in view of differences of several rheumatic diseases. So some diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, ankylosing spondyloarthritis are well explored, and these diseases have numerous clinical trials, whereas some autoinflammatory disorders, FMF, familial Mediterranean fever, or other autoinflammatory disorders are presented with case reports mainly. So for researchers and educators, Cochrane database of systematic reviews is important, with sometimes check whether a topic of our review is innovative or not by going to this database. It's the largest database of comprehensive overviews or synthesis of information. So in terms of COVID-19, as an example, there are 46 Cochrane reviews, and clinicians should pay attention to authors' conclusions without going into details, without spending a lot of time reading the whole systematic Cochrane reviews. We should simply trust the author conclusions, because these authors perform comprehensive searches via numerous databases and carefully select quality trials or cohort studies. There is also central registry of trials if we wish to analyze trials in our narrative or systematic reviews. And some of these clinical trials are also registered with World Health Organization registry as well. So we often rely on PubMed searches, and you can see here that Behçet syndrome, or it's Meschter or Behçet disease, is mostly presented with case reports, numerous case reports in case of Behçet disease. Whereas the same with COVID-19 at the initial stage of the COVID-19 pandemic, where most researchers relied on individual case studies, small cohort studies, or mixed cohorts, like initial reports on autoimmune disorders published by Annals of Rheumatic Diseases, also relied on mixed cohort, heterogeneous cohort of rheumatic diseases with COVID-19. So we should be flexible, and we should know that not all rheumatic or autoimmune disorders are presented with large studies, clinical studies, and cohort studies. When we structure our review, we should pay attention to references, and there are some unacceptable references. We mostly rely and choose sources with digital object identifiers, well-digitized sources, and avoid retracted items with questionable results, published with predatory journals without passing through quality checks. Some of our seasoned researchers may choose to publish editorials. These are small mini reviews, mostly with one or two conclusion points. Novice researchers publish case studies. Some of these case studies change practice recommendations, even EULAR recommendations, may rely on clinical case reports if there are no systematic reviews, if there are no large cohort studies, clinical studies. Specialists may rely on case series, case reports, and even expert opinion. Some case reports resulted in changing market, in withdrawal of some drugs from marketing. Particularly, we remember story of rofecoxib, COX-2 inhibitor that caused myocardial infarction, but initially it was well promoted and marketed as anti-inflammatory drug. But initial case reports also suggested that the drug had some dangerous, life-threatening adverse effects. Case reports for our participants should be structured and reported in line with CARE reporting standards endorsed by Equator Network. Now, about original research papers, which should be structured in line with IMRAD, Introduction, Methods, Results, and Discussion. So introduction should be concise, and in the introduction, authors should avoid long historic discussions, should go to the essence of topic, cover some important keywords. In the methods, they should present when and where they collected data, examined patients, collected data, particularly for let's say, platelet research, it's important to run study within few months up to half a year. And statistical analysis should include some important information, particularly about distribution of parameters. When we use Shapiro-Wilk or Kolmogorov-Smirnov test to check distribution, and then to employ either Mann-Whitney for not normally distributed or student t-test for normally distributed data. And the same with bivariate correlation analysis. Pearson for normal distribution, normally distributed data, and Spearman rank correlation analysis for not normally distributed data. We always should pay attention to power of our associations analysis and report not just p-values, but also 95% confidence intervals. It's important for all observational studies. Cohort studies are also considered as observational studies. In cohort studies, we pay attention to homogeneous subjects, homogeneous samples of patients with certain rheumatic diseases, let's say rheumatoid or lupus, or patients, smoking patients. In cohorts, we should find association between exposure, let's say, to smoking and outcomes, death, or myocardial infarction, etc., etc. And of course, the main limitation of cohort studies is that some patients may be lost at follow-up, let's say, retrospective or prospective follow-up of patients. And of course, in cohort studies, we frequently deal with Kaplan-Meier curve to find association between exposure and outcomes. Case control studies, nested case control studies are based on cohort studies. We simply draw our attention to certain specific details. Case control studies are more common, but power of these studies is much less compared to large cohort studies. And again, we should pay attention not just p-values, but also calculate odds ratios, pay attention to 95% intervals. Currently, we also publish a lot of cross-sectional studies. Some of these cross-sectional studies are based on clinical data, but there are also online surveys based on opinion of patients, professionals, students, etc. So in cross-sectional studies, we may deal with exposure and outcomes. However, we never analyze that association because time frame of our study, cross-sectional study, is quite limited. 1 day, 2 days, or a few weeks for, let's say, cross-sectional online surveys. And you probably know that there are some important surveys in the era of COVID-19. These surveys are based on careful analysis, based on distribution of data, Google Forms, to hundreds of participants. It's easy to run online surveys, to analyze opinion of specialists, to work with patients' knowledge and attitude towards new diseases like COVID-19 or comorbidities associated with COVID-19, etc., etc. For online surveys, which are cross-sectional studies, we need to work with social media to distribute data and also to process these data using Google Forms, SurveyMonkey, or other popular survey platform for analysis. And we may also we should rely on equator network standards like called CHERIS, specific standard for online surveys. Those who are going to work with clinical trials need to adhere to International Committee of Medical Journal Editors recommendations and register their trials at the beginning of their trials with clinicaltrials.gov or other acceptable platforms. These platforms are well known, particularly clinicaltrials.gov and WHO Registry of Clinical Trials, which are important in the era of COVID-19. So this was, I think, the last slide of this part of presentation. I'm open to questions, if there are any questions.
Dear Arman, thank you very much for your very informative and helpful presentation. We invite all our colleagues to make comments and ask questions. If no questions, as a moderator, I would like to ask you one question. What are the most common author's mistake in narrative and systematic reviews based on your rich editors and authors' experience? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Olena. Good question. So as editor, I often deal with reviews, narrative reviews, where authors simply rely on PubMed searches. It's because they don't have access to Scopus Web of Science. So I encourage all our novice researchers to get access to Scopus and use it for their narrative reviews. With systematic reviews, we often deal with redundant systematic reviews because they simply do not know about Cochrane database of systematic reviews or do not know about Prospero registry. They simply should go to these registries, find out whether the similar systematic review is already ongoing or published, and then choose their own topic. But there are also many other mistakes. Most today's participants should know that it's advisable to use at least two bibliographic databases, PubMed, Medline database, along with Scopus to produce good quality narrative review. Professor Grazio, you wanted to comment?
Unmute.
Olena, can you?
Yes. We cannot.
Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. Armin, you said that it is unacceptable to have a doctoral thesis or such a kind of papers or documents within reference list. But I noticed that many of the universities have their doctoral thesis open access. So what do you think that it could be acceptable in such cases, or what is your opinion about that?
Yeah, you paid attention to details of unacceptable references. Yeah, most Central and Eastern European authors have tradition to cite their seniors' PhD dissertations or their fellows' dissertations. It's in their tradition, but the world is changing, and the current recommendations advise against citing PhD works, PhD dissertations, and encourage to cite articles, published articles in widely visible journals, because these articles are published after stringent peer review, whereas PhD dissertations may contain numerous points and are published even for open access without stringent peer review. PhD dissertations are considered as non-peer-reviewed works, which is why I discouraged our participants to cite PhD dissertations.
Okay, thank you very much.
But if I may say, I don't completely agree with that point, because it is peer review, because our PhD thesis, for instance, if you have the rules for the structure of PhD thesis, if you have rules for citing literature and citing references, and if you have 3 to 5 members, depending on subject, for instance, at my university, Medical School of University of Zagreb, if you have 3 to 5 peer reviewers who were chosen between many people who know something about it, many experts in that field in Croatian who can understand Croatian, but we also have PhD thesis in English. We have also medical study in English, so they can be even broadened. They have even larger number of reviewers, potential reviewers, and member of committee who evaluate PhD thesis. So I'm not so, how can I say? I cannot agree fully with the thesis.
I see, yeah. And I cannot agree more with your point, yeah. PhD dissertations in Croatia are of high quality and high ethical standards. All of them are archived with institutional repositories. It's mandate for Croatian fellows. And I know that open access and open access initiatives are have strong basis in Croatia. And not just for open access for dissertations, but also for journals. You have Hrčak repository for journals. So your research infrastructure is well established, and I am well familiar with quality of PhD dissertations. These dissertations pass through quality controls and published and can be considered by authors as sources to learn. But it would be better to cite in narrative reviews and systematic reviews original research papers, individual articles, not dissertations. If authors choose to cite monographs or PhD dissertations, they should try hard to find digital object identifier or cite specific chapter, not the whole monograph. That could be quite helpful for readers to understand which points were processed by authors. So we are not contradicting each other. I mean, I suggest to cite individual articles rather than PhD dissertations, and all our researchers know that PhD dissertations, particularly those archived for open access, in Croatia are of high quality.
Thank you. Do you know what word Hrčak means?
It's an animal, yeah.
Yeah, hamster.
Hamster. Yeah. Strange name, yeah, but
it's acronym. It's acronym.
I see. Yeah, mnemonic acronym, yeah, yes. Abbreviation, I see. Yes. Yeah, and rheumatism also archived by Hrčak repository, yes. And it's one of the most reputable repositories in Europe, in EU at least.
Thank you.
Other points, other comments, Olena?
Let's move to the next item of our today's agenda. Dr. Gasparian will present our joint presentation on scientific networking platforms for researchers and authors. Please share your screen with us. Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay.
From beginning.
So there is no problem with connection. You can see and hear me properly.
Everything is fine. Don't worry.
Perfect. Good. Let's continue this part of presentation about social media platform. I should confess that I learned a lot. I've learned a lot from Dr. Olena Zimba, who is expert in social media, recognized by EMUNET at EULAR. And she's also social media editor for several journals, index rheumatology journals and general medical journals. Her experience was enormous experience was employed in Ukraine for upgrading local Ukrainian journals, not just rheumatology. And also, I should express my gratitude to all Ukrainian fellows of Shevchenko Scientific Society. I am currently full member of this society. Century ago, this society membered Albert Einstein, and I was accepted as full member a year ago, and president of this society informed me that it's a privilege to become member of Shevchenko Scientific Society. So with Olena's support, we've tried hard to raise profile of Ukrainian journals without much success because of a number of reasons and because of the war, but we are going to continue our work to raise scholarly standards at Eastern European and Central European journals and support our fellow rheumatologists in other countries to raise profile of their own journals. So we often rely on guidance from ethical guidance from International Committee of Medical Journal Editors, other societies like Editorial Society, Committee on Publication Ethics, with nearly 13,000 members from all over the world. And you should also know that there is a blog called Retraction Watch by Ivan Oransky, a New York-based specialist doctor who is currently processing all comments on retracted items, retracted articles. So for novice researchers, it could be great experience to read, to follow activities on Retraction Watch blog on Twitter, on Facebook, and to learn mistakes of others to avoid own research mistakes. For social networking, we need to know that Committee on Publication Ethics has core practices statements, 10 statements or so-called 10 commandments. One of these points, last point, number 10, tells us about post-publication promotion. Any journal should allow their authors and readers to communicate post-publication using valid platforms. Twitter is also considered as valid, reliable platform where there are some filters and some sort of moderation is also acceptable, more than compared to other platforms. So Twitter is an important channel for post-publication promotion, and you can see later on that good quality, top ranked journals, rheumatology journals, currently have social media editors and well-moderated Twitter channels for post-publication promotion. In 2019, Clinical Rheumatology Chief Editor Carlos Pineda published seminal work about social media in rheumatology journals, and at that time he mentioned about handful of rheumatology journals with social media editors. Currently, more and more rheumatology journals accept social media editors and try to increase visibility and outreach of their individual articles by commenting on their official Twitter channels. Some big publishers also encourage authors and readers to register with Twitter and be more active scholarly, share information about relevant articles, share their quick comments or so-called microblogging posts. And last survey by Springer Nature also resulted in an interesting conclusion that 75% of surveyees reported that they found relevant articles via social media searches. So I mentioned that we need bibliographic databases for reviews, systematic reviews, but from time to time, you may also go to your profiles on Twitter and find links to interesting articles, particularly if you are networking with scholars in your field of interest, rheumatology, medicine, or even specific diseases, systemic sclerosis, familial Mediterranean fever, etc., etc. As you know, we all as medics, need information about relevant keywords from medical subject headings. Knowing about keywords of our prime interest is important. And you can see that social media is a platform, liberal platform, freely moderate without any restrictions, and it helps to interact with colleagues from all over the world without any barrier, and easily integrate with professional sites as well. Social media channels are considered also as part of open access initiative, alongside with institutional repositories, PubMed Central, and even ORCID ID. Why we need social media? Most students use it for fun, for networking. Let's say they use primarily Facebook. Social media, particularly in the era of COVID-19, is used for teleeducation. Practitioners use it for telehealth purposes. And again, they may use Twitter, Facebook, allowing to run webinars, lecturing, etc., etc. Zoom is also a social media platform used today for our webinar. Tweet chats are popular, or tweet journal clubs for IMRAD and other members. So Twitter is an important channel for scholarly communication and learning from others by sharing, discussing, and tagging important information, liking and retweeting as well. So there was one important and relatively large survey of young rheumatology fellows arranged by IMRAD administration, and that survey in pre-COVID-19, pre-pandemic era suggested that young rheumatologists mostly use Facebook for networking. However, I am sure that situation has changed over the past 2 years, 2-3 years. This survey was published in 2017, and now the situation is quite different because more and more rheumatologists use Twitter. Some fellows in Southeastern European countries, Central Asian countries use Instagram. Chinese specialists use Sinovator and other local social media platforms. So it depends on where rheumatologists or scholars based. Mostly rheumatology fellows use Facebook for communicating with friends, receiving updates, clinical and research updates, and this survey also suggested that 1/3 of surveyees wanted to learn more, to have more advanced social media communication skills. With Olena Zimbo, we published guidelines or recommendations how to benefit from social media platforms, and of course, we highlighted the importance of Twitter. We discussed, analyzed other platforms, suggested to pay attention to Mendeley bookmarkings, because Mendeley bookmarkings are covered by altmetric.com platform, and it may predict citations to individual articles. But there are also other networking channels presented here. ResearchGate is one of the popular and quite informative platform for networking, sharing PDF of our articles in line with copyright and distribution regulations. Our fellows should know about Publon's platform. It's a platform for peer reviewers, and it also considered a social media platform because readers may comment on some individual articles available on Publon's platform after post-publication. So post-publication commenting on Publon's is something related to social media. Here I presented a list of rheumatology fellows. There are roughly 1,800 rheumatologists with profiles on Pablons, quite active. 10 most active rheumatologists are presented here, including Olena Zimba, Bogdana Doskaluk, and other fellows from Ukraine. Some of them are quite active. So hopefully Croatian young fellows will also start reviewing and building up their profile on Pablon's platform. Here is an example of good journal, Clinical Rheumatology, officially partnering with Pablon's and well endorsed by numerous clinical rheumatologists who are interested in these journals and who are frequently reviewed for clinical rheumatology, invited and contribute to clinical rheumatology. Among them, I can there are names of some Indian, Turkish, and other rheumatologists. So Twitter is important, and I hope that today's participants will also start actively using Twitter because it has immediacy effect. When article published, you tweet, you immediately increase outreach or resonance of these your own articles and articles published by others. So I hope that you will also use Twitter to retweet, not just like, retweet other comments, generate your own posts, your own comments, professional comments, short comments with hashtags, professional hashtags related to rheumatology or scholarly activities. And there are some preliminary data, preliminary articles suggesting that tweets may also predict citation numbers. So we need to know everything about predictors of our citations. How we should encourage our authors to be more active on Twitter. Good journals like Academic Medicine, High Impact Journal, or Startup Journal, Central Asian Journal of Medical Hypothesis and Ethics, recommend their authors to display their Twitter handles alongside their emails or ORCID IDs. Here you see big name in science, Jeffrey Bill, who also published in this Startup Journal, and his Twitter handle also presented. So asking authors to present Twitter handle along with emails and ORCID IDs may increase post-publication communication with readers, with those who are interested in activities, in scholarly activities on social media. For research groups, scholarly teams, large teams of scholars like EULAR, we need well-organized Twitter channels, well moderated by professional editors like Dr. Olena Zimba and others, skilled in digital science, skilled in ethical promotion of articles without any conflicts of interest. Most of the time, I see that rheumatology journals promote pharma-associated articles, and it's clear that there is apparent conflict of interest. So skilled social media editors are very careful when they post tweets, Facebook mentions. They know that they promote articles without any conflict of interest. And of course, we should know about EULAR Twitter channel, quite important for all rheumatologists and rehabilitation specialists. It is one of the well-populated platforms with more than 60,000 followers. This number is quite remarkable because I remember EULAR 2011 in London was one of the well-attended meetings with more than 16,000 rheumatologists from all over the world. So EULAR Twitter channel has the largest number of scholars, rheumatology scholars, following this channel. And of course, this channel helps Ukrainians as well. One of the last tweets was in support of peace in the region. Many Quartile 1 and Quartile 2 rheumatology journals are currently presented on Twitter channel. Almost all high-impact journals, like Annals of Rheumatic Diseases with RMD Open or Lancet Rheumatology, Q2 journals like Clinical Rheumatology, moderated by Dr. Olena Zimba, is also a relatively new channel, but with impressive number of tweets, impressive number of followers, roughly 4,500 followers, and it was launched just in August 2019. So these channels are important for ethical promotion of articles and attracting readership to share their opinion freely without any barriers, without any fear of restrictions. So some examples of good tweets on this channel, Clinical Rheumatology. You can see that these tweets are eye-catching, and clinicians also may learn a lot by following channels of these quite didactic journals, publishing case studies, image articles, etc. How followers may increase resonance of articles? They simply may use social media plugins available on PubMed platform, journal individual platforms, and Dimensions platform also allows to share individual articles on Twitter, on other social media channels. Some journals also aggregate that information annually and present reports on citation metrics, on non-traditional or alternative metrics like downloads, altmetric mentions, and scores of individual or top-ranked journals. It's also important, so clinicians may also learn a lot from by going to these links, altmetric links, and learning why these articles are well promoted on social media. Based on DORA declaration, we should move away from just single metrics like journal impact factor, and pay attention to other metrics, other non-traditional metrics like altmetric attention scores, etc., etc. Some technical tips for tweeting by our novice authors and researchers. Try to use photos, videos when you tweet, links to interesting articles. You should know about hashtags, professional hashtags like COVID-19, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, etc. And when you tag your posts with these hashtags, you may increase retrievability or visibility of your tweets. And you may also tag organizations like EULAR, WHO, IMRAD. It's free, liberal. You simply don't be shy. If you think that the article that you are commenting or sharing is important for global audience, please tag these important associations as well. Number of characters is limited in Twitter, so we should use shortening services like Bitly, other technical servers for shortening URL links and allowing to put more information in our tweets. We should use Twitter channels for regular activities, but avoid too frequent posts, because these activities, aggressive activities, can be considered as bot activities or robot activities, trolling activities by individuals, and your account can be even suspended. So social media editors know when to share information, because they know when their audience is most active on Twitter or other, particularly on Twitter. And I know that Olena Zimba is also paying attention to timing of generating and posting tweets, because when she posts tweets, audience immediately notices all followers notice these tweets, like, share, retweet, and there is more resonance because of knowing timing of most followers. Timing is also important. There are some ethical regulations for sharing information. Again, it comes from Dr. Olena Zimba. So we should be very careful with individual and professional posts. You may post individual on your Facebook, Twitter, or other account, but on official accounts of journals and societies, there should be no any personal information. All information on journal accounts should be about articles, about important scholarly items, nothing personal, nothing with conflicts of interest or with links to pharmaceutical agencies. Some aggregators of social media are important. I strongly encourage our fellows to know more about altmetric.com and Plum Analytics as well. Plum Analytics is associated officially with Scopus articles, but altmetric.com allows to process information, to generate altmetric attention scores, to have numbers, and to judge or evaluate articles based on their promotion on social media. So news outlets, blogs, Twitter allow to increase social media rank of individual articles. Currently, the algorithm of Altmetric slightly changed weight of Twitter, equalized to Facebook public pages, not 0.25, but still, given the high number of tweets, the role of tweets is quite important, even after decreasing weight of tweets by altmetric.com. Here is an example of one of our own articles published at the initial stage of COVID-19, well promoted with relatively high number of tweets, 180, a large number of followers who bookmarked this article on their Mendeley profiles, and the number of citations is also quite high. Some journals like Clinical Rheumatology follow activities on social media, and you see that our article is ranked number 10 based on social media activities. So a lot of researchers in rheumatology are interested in this article and site, and I hope that our today's participants will be more skilled in social media, will understand why they need to work with altmetric attention score, why they need to be more active on social media to contribute to rheumatology research and to collaborate with their researchers worldwide, to run online surveys and benefit from openly available numerous social media channels, particularly Twitter. And of course, for targeting journals, some of our authors may also choose journals with wide social media outreach. Let's say even in rheumatology, there are some journals with well-organized social media channels on Twitter, allowing authors to benefit from post-publication communication. At the end of my part of presentations, I'd like to express my gratitude individually to Professor Branimir Anic, to Professor Simeon Grazio, to all today's participants. I know that they respected our fellows, Ukrainian rheumatology fellows, Dr. Olena Zimba in particular, and also shared their optimism that by attending this webinar and to learn something, to draft their articles for good rheumatology journals. I know that today we have participants like Ines Doko, Zelka Kardum, Professor Peric, and many other. Most of names are new to me, but hopefully we'll know better each other later on. Thank you very much. Olena? over to you.
Thank you, Arman. I would like to say that post-publication article promotion, it's really a lovely job. First of all, because it's continuing professional development, and also it's really creative and relaxing. And I would like to say that that social media editor plays a really important role in scientific journals because impressive, eye-catching tweets with photographs, graphics, figures can attract more attention among medical and scientific community and potentially attract more citations. Just remember that we need retweets, not just likes. For increasing influence of published articles.
And there are also altmetric analysis.
Yes.
Some relate to rheumatology research. PhD fellows also need to know how to work with bibliographic databases. If Scopus is integrated with Plum analytics and articles are presented with altmetric information, so it means that it's also important to Scopus users, not just citations, but also social media metrics. Thank you, Olena. So we have some other, we just finished with first part of our webinar. Now, I think Professor Branimir Anić and Professor Simeon Grazia will continue.
Yes, please welcome our next speakers, Professor Grazio, who will be talking on how to write and critically appraise a clinical research paper. Please, you can share with us your screen.
Thank you very much. Can you see it?
Yes, everything is fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much once more. I'm very, very happy to be with you in this seminar. And with my lecture, we will go a little bit turning into basics, and I hope that it will be useful, especially to younger researchers. It's a broad subject, how to write and critically appraise scholarly clinical research paper, but I try to squeeze it in half an hour, pointing out also some common errors to be bear in mind with some, I hope, useful tips how to write and read a research paper. So we'll start with definition about academic, scientific, or scholarly paper, which is a peer-reviewed paper written by experts. And we must bear in mind that the main function of the journal and our paper is to distribute knowledge and not to make money for the publisher. that is one thing that should be aiming us. And the other fact that it is important that each fact, each statement or opinion should be well documented. So this is a typical anatomy of a paper that you are familiar with, and this is a structure that is also well known to most of you, which Armen already mentioned. That is the standard structure of the body of scientific papers, which is introduction, materials and methods, results, and discussion and conclusion. So why this is the structure that is used? Because it gives a logical flow to the content of the paper. it makes journal papers predictable and in such a way easy to read. And it provides a map so the readers can quickly find content of interest of the manuscript itself. We'll start with the title. It is usually, of course, the first introduction. The ideal title should accurately describe the contents of the manuscript. It should highlight the importance of the research, and it should be concise and grab attention, and so that it should make people want to read further. So writing a good title could be challenging, and for example, I'm showing you some title and authors that I chose. So what one can say about the title is descriptive. It states the main findings of the paper, but it is not very creative and catchy. Some other thing that one could tell from the title and of course the authors is about the community of scientists or experts in that field. So you get known what some scientists or researchers have been doing in the field of interest. What about common errors in the title? It is either too long or too short. Some other common error is that it doesn't match the article or the study design. It includes abbreviations, jargons, or attempts to be witty in the expense of clarity. So it should be avoided. Or it simply inadequately describes the study itself. The abstract is the content of the paper in short. Many readers will only read the abstract of the paper, so it has to be able to stand alone. So it should be kind of self-explanatory, and that people can clearly see what is about in this paper. The abstract should answer some questions. What was done? Why did you do it? What did you find? And why are these findings useful and or important? We must bear in mind that one will often decide if the paper is worth reading based upon the abstract. So what are the common errors in the abstract? These are that abstract results are not the same as the reported results, so they differ in a way. Abstract methods are different than the methods in the manuscript. Conclusion is different. Then you should take in account the word limit. So when you are writing and submitting the paper, it shouldn't exceed the word limit allowed by the journal. And also a common error that it is formatted incorrectly for the journal. Example is unstructured versus structured version of the abstract. Keywords, you heard a lot from Armen about keywords, and how to choose them from the mesh. They should be effective. They must be chosen carefully. Basically, they should represent the content of the paper and be specific to the field or subfield of the paper. There are some advanced search strategies that are helpful to find papers of interest too. As for introduction, it presents the background information to understand why the research was conducted and why the findings of this paper are significant. Its structure is usually, first of all, accepted state of knowledge in the field, so what's been already known about that. Then you move to the particular aspect of the field. So it will lead the reader to the hypothesis being tested, and at the end, some aims or conclusions that could be drawn from the results of the paper. What are common errors in the introduction? It simply doesn't describe the purpose and objective of the study, does not mention the importance and originality of the study, contains some material unrelated to the study. If you are going to the very wide review in the introduction, it is, upon my experience, not so rare error. Also, it could contain material belonging in other sections of the manuscript. It is also not uncommon, or a kind of error, but it couldn't be said that it is a big error, but it is the one thing that we are observing when we are reading, so that it's not interesting. It isn't, say again, catchy. For materials and methods, they should provide all the details, how the study was conducted, should be detailed enough for another scientist to replicate the work. In reality, it is often compressed, and you may need to look up to another paper that is a reference for more detail, for some methods or some questionnaires, so on. Good section of materials and methods is that it can explain to another colleague clearly what you have done. What are common errors in the materials and methods section? Some methods reported are not used. Some methods are missing, so it doesn't allow the duplication of the study. Reports of statistical methods are incorrect or poor, and described methods do not relate to the results. Then we come to the results. This section describes the outcome of the research or the experiment that was done to answer your question, your hypothesis. Results should be presented in logical order. In general, that is the order of importance and not how the research itself was done. Results are often simply stated, not discussed, because the discussion and interpretation of the result will be later on in the discussion section. We must pay attention to figures and tables. They are useful because they allow the reader to see the large amount of complex information, that is outcomes, but they are also important for attracting readers to the work, because attractive display items will hold the interest of readers. Because many readers will only look at the display items without reading the main text of the manuscript. Therefore, it is very important to choose and to design figures and tables very carefully. Also, high quality display items give the work professional appearance. So reader and editor will assume that a professional looking manuscript contains kind of, how to say, professionally done work or science. What are common errors for the results? There are too many figures and tables, or using figures and tables where it would be better to just include information in the text. Duplication of the data among figures, tables, and text, because restatement of the data from the table or from the figures is not so good, because you use a lot of space and it is not appreciated by the editors and the publisher. Some other common errors is reporting data incompletely, not reporting relevant statistical data, as Armen said, 95% confidence interval or p-values or any other important statistical data. Also, sometimes authors put in this section results from another study or studies, which is inappropriate. So including also parts that belong to discussion or methods into results is not acceptable as well. As for the discussion, the main question in this section is what do the results mean? Data are analyzed to show and to be interpreted by the author. Especially, one must pay attention what is new and what are the implications of the results regarding our knowledge, our practice, our errors, etc. And how these outcomes, how these findings relate to the results with those from other studies. Are they consistent or not? If not, what are the possible reasons for this difference? So you shouldn't just repeat your result, but give a plausible explanation of your results and their importance. So what the results may mean for the researcher in the same field. Also very important, were any inconclusive results, where they mentioned and explained. You should frankly mention and state all the limitations of the research, and you should be aware that conclusion at the end of the paper is based on the main findings on the work and not some general conclusion. One should be sure to separate facts from the opinion and interpretation, and not to go so further away from the results. And while writing a paper, it's useful to describe for yourself why these data are significant, and then put it on the paper. What are the common errors in the discussion? It is biased and omits findings from other studies. It doesn't explain key results, but it explains some results that are not main outcomes of the study. Also, it doesn't describe the limitations of the study, which is, in my opinion, a very important part of discussion. Does not characterize speculation as such, includes information unrelated to the study. Again, when you are going further away from your topic, includes outdated references or misrepresents them, overstates the importance of the study. So when you think that your study is crucial, say for the humanity, but in fact it is not, or if it is too expensive and lacks a logical flow, these are also some errors. As for conclusions, it is usually at the end of the discussion or separate. Authors can summarize the work's finding and maybe generalize their importance, but mainly focusing on their own findings, their own outcome. Also, author or authors can raise questions, discuss ambiguous data, and recommend places for further research, although it is often considered to be not necessary for the scholarly journal, but as far as I can see, it is usually incorporated in this part of the manuscript. Conclusions, some or all goals should be interpret results, supporting conclusion with evidence. Recognize also the importance of some negative results. Move from the general to the specific, to your own results. Mention practical application or implication, if any. Define some unanswered questions and give recommendation for further research. What are common errors in the conclusions? They just restate the content from other section, not so rarely just a copy paste of the sentences. It includes statements that are not supported by the study, by the results, does not clearly relate the findings to the purpose of the study, and contains unnecessary information for this part of the manuscript. As for the references, they have an important role, and failure to sufficiently cite other work can reduce the chances of being published. So one should be sure to cite publications whose results disagree with your own results. Be concise also. You don't have to overwhelm the reader with too many references. Another important rule is never to cite a publication based on what you have read in a different publication, such from the review, and based only on the publication's abstract because these things may be misleading. At the end of your writing the manuscript, formatting of the manuscript is very important because it will speed up the submission process, because it can also increase your chances of success, because you will not omit materials that the journal might require. And one important tip is that before writing a complete draft of your manuscript, it is good idea to select the journal, target journal, so the journal you are submitting your manuscript. You should review all guidelines and to check whether you obeyed all word and character limits. Did you include all required sections? Did you meet language requirements? Contact information, inserted figures in the correct location. So some journals require that you put it within the text, some other to put it at the end of the manuscript, or to be separate files. You should correctly format the references, use the correct file format for images, state any conflict of interest. It is also very important, and obtain consent from all authors. So when you are at the end of your manuscript, you may be tired. Once more, save your energy for the overall reflection and criticism. Go through all the parts of the manuscript, and if you are sure that everything is okay, then you can submit it. The second part of my lecture is how to read an academic article efficiently, because there are some tips about that, without wasting too much time or too much energy. You should learn how to skim and scan the article. You need to become not only avid reader, but also efficient reader. So skimming is the term when you want to read something quickly to get a general idea. So you firstly read the table of contents, then read the opening and closing sentences of paragraphs, read the heading and subheadings, and look at any illustration or graphic features. Scanning when you want to read something quickly to find a specific piece of information. In that case, you should look for keywords related to your topic, look for some, say, bold print or italics, look for words in larger font size, if there are any, and look throughout bulleted information and sidebars, because they are kind of main informations that the journal will send to the readers. So how to read an academic scientific article efficiently? First, read the abstract, of course, if it is provided. Then read the introduction. Then section headings and subheadings. skip everything else, or alternatively read 1 to 2 first sentences of each paragraph. Then go to the conclusion, read the conclusion, and skim the middle of the article, looking at the section titles, tables, figures, etc., trying to get a feel for the style and flow of the article. Then in step 2, go back to the whole thing quickly, skipping equations, most figures and tables. In the step 3, you go back and read the whole thing carefully, focusing on the sections or areas that seem most important. And at the end, once you've grasped the argument, the author is trying to make then critique it. So some kind of critics are objectivity, whether it is flexible, acceptable, comprehensive, organized, thoughtful, specific, interesting for your field of expertise, and mainly ask if the arguments make sense. Is it well supported by argument or evidence? Of course, this skill takes some experience to develop. It's useful to take notes because notes allow you to highlight the important issues, as well as take a break of hours or days and come back to your thoughts, because you won't have to reread the parts you completed. And with this, I'm ending my talk about how to write and read scientific article.
Thank you, Professor Grazio, for your excellent presentation. Your valuable tips will help our participants to target the best journals.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Who would like to make some comments or ask questions?
I would like to ask, what does this book represent on the last slide?
Honestly, I don't know. I liked it. I
It's
just
probably
put,
Bible.
Bible?
Is it Bible?
It looks like Bible, yeah, or ancient book.
No,
it looks like Bible.
I
Yeah.
just come back, okay, to see what is the explanation. No, it is. These are some old books from Dubrovnik Republic. You know, Dubrovnik was an independent republic in the medieval period, and until 1808. So it is really a book from there. I found it.
Yeah, I think so, because it looks older. Shevchenko is a writer from 19th century, if I remember well. So it looks older than 19th century.
Yeah, so probably we need some comments from our audience, our regular participants like Dr. Kardum, Ines Doko, and I know that Professor Branimir Anic and Professor Grazio invited their scholars, their fellows, rheumatology fellows. I'm sure they will start targeting good rheumatology journals. I mean, indexed rheumatology journals, and now they know how to choose from quartile 1 or quartile 2 for their PhD studies, because in some European and Central Asian countries, researchers are obliged to publish in top quartile 1, quartile 2 journals, and journals like Clinical Rheumatology satisfies these criteria. So hopefully Croatians will publish more with top rheumatology journals, and will also target their local journals. All these journals like Lečnički Vjesnik and also Rheumatism, also quite reputable journal published by Croatian Rheumatology Society. And I am sure that journal has been an educational source for generations of rheumatology fellows. And it continues to publish in traditional style with picturesque image cover page. So all traditions are preserved. I know that there are good traditions of publishing traditions in Croatia. You have large publisher Medicinska Naklada, and you have consortia of universities, Zagreb University and other universities publishing Croatian medical journals. And I am sure your Croatian rheumatology fellows always strive to publish great articles, and this is why predatory publishing is almost non-existent in Croatia. Your fellows always publish their great works in great journals. Thank you for that.
Thank you for acknowledgement.
Yes, thank you.
So perhaps some comments in Croatian by our participants. Don't be shy, share your thoughts, your vision on future of rheumatology publishing, or complain to us share your unfortunate experience with publishing with targeting rheumatology journals. It's also allowed today. We need to learn from you as authors who publish with good journals, who receive rejections. Novice rheumatology fellows may receive numerous rejections from indexed rheumatology journals because they are interested in influential articles that may attract a lot of citations, and now also social media attention as well. So if you wish, you can share your impressions.
Well, I'll say something. I think that first part of your talk, Armen, was very informative for us, especially for younger colleagues, about predatory journals and open access journals with high fees for publishing, and how it really works. Well, golden access does not exist broadly. That means free for authors, free for readers. And the other thing, and that is very, very important, I think for all my colleagues, younger colleagues, to understand how it really works and what does this term open access really means. There are a lot of predatory journals, and my mail is full of invitations for articles, for manuscripts, for all type of anything you can imagine. It can be sent there, but you have to read very carefully what is on and check what is behind it. And the other point from this afternoon is I forgot these skimming and scanning terms, and that was very nice what Shime said. Skimming and scanning is a very useful tool for to improve or to use our time better, to optimize our time and to find something what we want. I think it is worthwhile, and we repeated it few times in a different towns when we have our workshops and seminars held in these different towns. Skimming and scanning are very, very useful tools, or way of thinking, or way of using sources.
Efficient reading, efficient reading.
Efficient reading, okay.
Okay, Professor Anic, thank you very much for your positive comment on our presentations. I wanted just to share my thoughts on open access. It's now mandatory for most rheumatology research teams in Europe and also in some parts of America, in some American countries. So researchers need to publish their works and archive these with PubMed Central to receive more post-publication comments, citations, and discussion, post-publication discussion. So open access is a good initiative for young rheumatology fellows, PhD candidates to receive critiques, to receive comments on their published works. With wider visibility, of course, they will receive more comments from all over the world, and it's open access is good. But the other side of the coin is just that not all rheumatology fellows have funding for PubMed Central archiving, for gold open access. If they lack funding, they may choose platinum open access journals like Croatian Medical Journal, archived at PubMed Central, but it's free for authors to publish with that journal. There are some problems with Croatian Medical Journal. It's not quartile 1 and not quartile 2 journal. And nowadays, some advanced researchers need to publish in top ranked journals. This is why they often choose top medical journals like Lancet or Lancet sister journals, Lancet Rheumatology, game changer in the field of rheumatology, and it soon will become #1 journal, competitor to Annals and Arthritis and Rheumatology. All rheumatology journals, there are currently 58 with Scopus-based metrics, all of them struggle to compete and to have more open access. Hybrid for some journals like Elsevier, Springer Nature journals, or simply gold open access journals like RMD Open, BMJ Group journals. And they charge a lot. The other option for researchers without funds is to publish with Springer Nature or other journals via institutional agreements. So institutions pay for all their staff to a large publisher and allow all their researchers to publish and archive their articles with PubMed Central. It's also an option, and simply more active work should be done by governments to cooperate with large publishers or invest in their own local journals to increase rank, to increase their prestige in terms of citations and social media attention. So there are numerous options, and I hope that Croatia will succeed in the global competition and will publish great articles with top medical journals, Lancet journals, Lancet series journals, and also some of our so-called friendly journals, rheumatology-friendly journals.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your hospitality, for your respect to our team. I hope that we'll continue our cooperation. We'll have also online and offline meetings later this year, depending on the pandemic, which is still ongoing pandemic in some parts of the world, in China. So hopefully later this year, we'll have more chances to travel, to meet with each other. attend rheumatology clinical meetings, not just science communication meetings, share our experience and express our gratitude to our Croatian collaborators. For our Ukrainian fellows, I hope that Croatian government will open more options for highly skilled specialists to do PhD research, to continue their post-PhD studies, short-term, medium-term, or somehow to even longer term, depending on interest of Ukrainian fellows. Olena Zimba was fortunate because she was accepted immediately by some of our friends in Poland, rheumatologists, who knew her credentials, and it was too close. Krakow was too close to her hometown, home city, Lviv. This is why she emigrated urgently, and she benefited from cooperation with Polish rheumatologists. But I hope that we'll continue our cooperation with Croatian rheumatologists and publish, contribute to Croatian journals, Rheumatism, which is our main interest in rheumatology, Croatian rheumatology. Hopefully other journal editors from other Croatian journals will also pay attention to our initiatives, social media activities, and increase visibility of their journals by launching Twitter accounts, by being more active on social media, attracting followers from all over the world, including Ukrainian. Some of the Ukrainian fellows are quite active and skilled in social media, like Olena Zimba. Hopefully you will benefit from her experience as well. Thank you very much. Olena?
It looks like we have discussed all items of today's workshop. I would like to say that I am very grateful to Professor Anic, to Professor Grazio for organizing of today's webinar. And many thanks for your personal support and also for official support of Croatian Medical Association. It's really the darkest hour for Ukraine, and thank you to all Croatian people for all that you have done for Ukrainian people, and we just pray for immediate peace. And your support and encouraging words deeply touch me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Olena. Thank you, Armen. You have all our support and also concrete help if necessary. So we've always been showing and will show in the future solidarity with all of you affected by this war, by suffering from the effects of this war. So please take care of yourself, and as you always, Armen, and all your emails, stay healthy, and love from all of us.
Professor Porin Peric also wanted to share comments.
No, I didn't want to share comments, but if you announce me, I just want to thank you for a nice presentation, you and Olena Zimba and all lectures. I really enjoyed all the meetings. So thank you very much. And I agree with my colleagues, Professor Anic and Professor Grazio. We are all with you, so we are supporting Ukraine people. I'm speaking of myself, but I think that's the meaning of all people in Croatia. So I hope this war will be ended soon. I hope so. So I hope also that we are going to continue with our medical and normal activities as before the war. So thank you very much for your contribution today. I think that a lot of young colleagues really enjoyed in your presentation and Professor Grazio presentation. So thank you very much.
I have nothing more to add.
Thank you very much. So, Olena, certificates will be distributed within 2 weeks after this meeting, yeah?
Yes, and
we'll
also
discuss-
recorded webinar, yes.
Okay, we'll discuss technical issues later on. Okay.
Yes.
Once again, thank you very much for all participants. We have numerous registered participants, and most of them are still with us at the end of this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you.
Bye-bye.
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 Take care. Bye.
Yes,
Thank you. Bye.
Like